Jai Shri Ram, everybody. I wanted to talk today about Akhand Bharat. I'm sure we have all seen these maps of Akhand Bharat depicting the entire Indian subcontinent as one nation, and often also including mainland Southeast Asia, parts of Indonesia, Afghanistan, and other parts of Central Asia. And of course, the narrative around this kind of idea is that, well, we had this, very large civilization that spanned much of Asia, and now we are so small and things. And, there's this whole kind of civilizational narrative around that. And I think that the civilizational narrative needs to be talked about more. We need to understand and learn about and research what the kind of Hindu and Buddhist culture of those places were before they were converted to Islam, which of course happened to all of those different places, or even Buddhism as we've seen in mainland Southeast Asia. But I think that there is a kind of useless is a strong word, but a trend among the people that talk about this a lot that's not really useful, which is that expansion for us as Hindus, I think, doesn't need to begin outside of India. It needs to begin within India itself. When you look at the demographic change that's hitting Kerala, when you look at the demographic change that's hitting West Bengal and Assam, we see that Hindus are quickly becoming a minority. In Kerala, depending on what figures you look at or trust, we may already be a minority there. And so I think that, trying to convince or, remind people of their Hindu heritage outside of India it really doesn't make much sense when less than 80% of India itself is Hindu right now. And, again, I think we need to focus our efforts on that and also focus our efforts on Kashmir. Whatever kind of political solution is going to be there in the long term, now that 370 has finally been revoked. Whatever is going to happen with the resettlement of people there, I have no idea. But I think that and the demographic changes that are hitting the states that I mentioned, and also the rising tide of Christian conversion that we've seen already sweep across the Northeast, and we see currently taking hold of the state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, I think that's what we need to focus on. Now, I want to pivot to a kind of related topic, which is people that are kind of overly concerned with things that are going on outside of India. Again, which I think that, where Hindus are being oppressed as a minority, it's a huge problem, and we need to protect them and help them. But there's really no realistic way to do that other than facilitating them coming into India, right? And so I think that any of these kinds of conversations about, well, what's happening to the Hindus in Pakistan and Bangladesh and these different places, it needs to be couched in, we are going to create, or by we I mean the state or the BJP or whatever, we're going to create a coherent plan that's actually legal to facilitate bringing these people into India so that they can escape all of the persecution that they go through. Now, the state of Israel has this concept called Aliyah, I believe it's called, where they make it very easy for people who are of Jewish heritage to migrate into Israel. This is how they were able to grow their population there in the first place, and they continue to get more and more people moving there over time. And I think, if we could say we are a Hindu state, we are a state for Hindus, and by Hindus I mean people who follow dharmic religions, which would of course include Sikhs and Jains also, and Buddhists to whatever degree that they would need to be helped and protected, even though they have many Buddhist majority states as well. That if we actually took this on, that's the only way that we can solve this issue. And whenever I see people talking about we need to declare India Hindu Rashtra and using this term Hindu Rashtra all the time, I think, the most impactful, meaningful way that India can become a Hindu Rashtra is not it's not from some declaration, it's not from some Bhagwa Jhanda being placed somewhere. It's from bringing in Hindus who are under duress into India and just, basically saying, we're going to facilitate this, we're going to help you, and finding places in India with, hopefully somewhat similar cultures to what they have now where they can settle down, right? And I wanted to bring up a kind of a somewhat related topic to this, which is loosely related, probably, which is the two nation theory that we all have heard so much about, and we hear these different talks about. Well, back in the era of independence, was this person in favor of the two nation theory or not? And it's really often used as a slur by people who want to tarnish the legacy of one freedom fighter or another by saying, well, they, either secretly or outwardly supported the two nation theory and this is anti-Indian and so on and so forth. And I think that we're not in the 1940s anymore. We're in 2021. And what we see now, which I think is very clear, is that if India was not partitioned, we'd be in a much worse situation. I mean, you think about the fact that if you were to add up the populations of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and undivided India, just with these three countries, the Muslim population as a percentage of those three countries combined, the populations combined, is about 32% right now. In 1941, which was the last time that this Indian census was taken before independence, because of course it's taken every 10 years and years ending in one. In 1941, Muslims made up 24% of the undivided India. Now, if you look into that figure, about 7% of Indians were not classified in a religion because they were tribals or they were part of some other category, and God only knows what that even means. So how much of these people had practices that could be realistically termed Hindu or not, we don't know. But anyway, 24% of Indians at that time were Muslim, and now it's 32% of that same landmass. And right now in India, the Republic of India, it's about 15%, which is about half of what the total population of the subcontinent that's Muslim would be. So whenever I hear people saying negative things about partition, I always think, just imagine what if partition did not happen. The same kind of separatist, anti-national, anti-Hindu political elements would have existed within the the Muslim polity in India, and they would be twice as large. I mean, is that going to result in civil war? Of course, we have no way of knowing what would happen for sure, but I think that a continued consolidation of the Muslim vote and them pushing for their own united interest would have been far stronger, and obviously numerically we would have been at a total disadvantage. And if you think about the politics that India has had during its during its state as an independent country, much of it, the Hindu polity has not been united at all. In fact, it's only in these last two elections where we see some clear movement towards a consolidation of the Hindu vote behind the BJP, and even then, it's not the majority either. It's still, we're working towards it. It's moving forward, but I think the situation would be far, far worse if the partition never happened. Now, I want to close on this. I think the main reason why people on our side are so anti-partition and anti-two-nation theory is really just one thing, which is very practical, and I totally understand why they say it, which is the Kashmir issue. Because logically, if you think, well, the two-nation theory is real and Muslims do constitute, or Indian Muslims do constitute a separate identity, a separate nation, then the logical outgrowth of that would be, well, Kashmir should be given to Pakistan then because it's majority Muslim, right? And obviously nobody that believes in Hindutva wants Kashmir to go to Pakistan or be independent. We all want Kashmir to be part of India, and we all want the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to also be under the control of India as well, right? And so there's not really a kind of rational way to make both of those fit together if you're pro two nation theory, but also pro India being or Kashmir being part of India, right? And so I feel like that's kind of the underlying motivation that because we have a very real threat of different parts of India being partitioned away, again, as we see with the insurgency in Kashmir that's been going on forever, and also various insurgencies in the northeast where these Christian converted tribals are being mobilized to, in Tripura and Assam and Nagaland and so on. And I think that's a very real, very reasonable threat and fear. So I think that's basically why people don't want to say, the two nation theory was right and it was a good thing to have partition. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.